Yes! Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. Welcome back to Watching the Watchers. We have a great stream planned ahead. Let's do a quick preview on what's coming up, then we'll zoom in for further details. But we're going back into Judge Boasberg's courtroom today. Remember this guy? He was an Obama appointee. He's been a real pain in America's booty when it comes to the deportations. Remember, he was the judge that said, turn that airplane back around. And Trump, of course, did not. And this went all the way up to the Supreme Court and came back down. And this judge has gone so crazy that he actually ordered Trump to do some more things, calling it habeas, even though it's clearly not habeas and it's outside of what is allowed. So what happened is Trump filed an emergency motion for a stay, filed it with this judge, and then took it up to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. And we got the latest on this because we'll go through the emergency motion and then take a look at what the D.C. Circuit had to say, which is granting the stay against Boasberg, who's now had this happen multiple times and continues on to be a partisan judge. So we'll go through that. We'll see what the latest is from the Trump DOJ. We'll see what Tricia from Ohio had to say about this, saying that we're going to be dealing with these illegals in the courts and on the streets. And we also had Pete Hegseth get into it with this lady about how this is going to operate when the DOD is involved. So all that coming up. We'll see what the latest is with Boasberg. Boasberg having a bad day. So we'll come back on that. Then we've got the Alien Enemies Act, something we've been talking a lot about here. We now have new forms. So this is the document that they submitted as an exhibit. They said, look, all right, you want due process? You want notice? You want all this stuff? We'll give it to you. Here's the form. And so we'll read through it. We'll see what's exactly inside. You see take the illegal photograph, put it right there. Take the illegal index finger print, put that right there, and say, afuera, have a nice flight. But we'll go through and see exactly what Trump's DOJ is explaining, because they did submit this as part of a much broader filing. And this is on appeal up in Texas. It's, again, in a WMM case. And remember, all of these are pseudo-anonymous illegal cases. And so all this is now on appeal. And Trump is explaining in this pretty large brief why there is due process that is being afforded to these illegals, right? Saying the government procedures are sufficient. Everything we're doing is above board. So just chill out. We'll go through it. Then we'll check out to see what Pam Bondi had to say. She was out explaining what the DOJ is doing. We'll see what Pam is up to coming up soon. Then in our final segment, we'll talk about these illegals who are getting arrested all over the place. Apparently, this guy arrested for or charged with attempted murder. And I'm trying to get my hands on the document, but this is what Fox News is reporting, courtesy of Tricia, Ohio. And apparently this dude, right, throwing these Molotovs up there, now getting charged with attempted murder. It's a good start. We've also got other charges for unregistered destructive devices and more. We'll see if that murder charge ultimately comes to fruition. But lots of arrests happening. We'll go parse through some of them. Apparently, we've got a Marine person. I don't know what this is about, but apparently a Marine person is now abandoning her post or their post and then going and joining in the illegals. So we'll talk about that. We've got a lot of reaction to these arrests, including from the U.S. attorney over there in California named Esseley, who had a press briefing today and walked us through it. And Caroline Leavitt was also out in full force today. Several clips from her. We've got the Senate president from Mexico, who, as we've talked a lot about here this week, is now officially holding up the sign, okay? So this is the president of the Senate in Mexico. His name is Gerardo Fernandez Noroña. Here's what he says. Well, it's kind of our land anyways, all right? So just get ready for it. That's what they're saying in the Senate down there. And it's all coming to fruition. The Mexican Reconquista is well underway. So hopefully our politicians are paying attention. So we got that. We got Homeland saying, get out. Love these new posters here. Report all foreign invaders to ICE. And so you too can save America. Just dial 1-866-2HS-2-ICE. Like you're going to ICE and afuera out of our country. So a bunch of stuff coming up. It's going to be a great stream. We got Caroline Lovett and more. And we're very glad and grateful that you are here and with us. Now, before we get into any business on the day, you know what's coming up? Father's Day. And if you're out of ideas, you're like, oh gosh, what am I going to do? Here's an answer for you. The hardest part, as we're going to see, the hardest part of cooking meat, whether it's steaks, chicken, or fish, is the guesswork. You're tethered to a hot stove or grill. You're sweating, constantly checking, cutting into it. Does it work? Is it done? Is it time to serve? Who knows? Is it going to be overcooked or what's going on? But those days are officially over. The Chef IQ Sense is a game-changing wireless cooking sensor that takes all the stress and uncertainty out of the kitchen. It's not just a meat thermometer. It's an intelligent cooking assistant. And here's how it works. All you got to do is just insert the Chef IQ Sense into whatever you're cooking. Open the app, select the type of meat and your preferred doneness, rare, medium, well done, anything in between. And from there, Chef IQ Sense continuously monitors your food, predicts exactly when it's going to be done. And that means no more hovering, no more flipping, second guessing, mashing it. You're going to get an alert. It's done. Grill with confidence now. Pretty easy. And you can cook with precision. You can host without the stress. So this is perfect for summer barbecues, weeknight dinners, and an unbeatable Father's Day gift. So get your order in. Flash sale is happening right now. You can get 15% off over at chefiq.com. Use promo code Robert and you'll save. That's chefiq.com, promo code Robert. And this is where smarter cooking starts. Chef IQ Sense. So check it out and have a beautiful Father's Day with deliciously cooked meat. All right, so thank you to them for sponsoring today's show. And now, my friends, let's get into the business on the day. Yeah, John says, men never cut into your meat. Man, never cut into your meat. Ravicus showing us some nice steaks over there on Locals. Good stuff. All right, so we've got a very unhappy judge today, and we know who that is. His name is Boasberg, and here's why he's unhappy, courtesy of the Court of Appeals. Judge Boasberg, an Obama appointee, having a bad day today after this came across the line from the United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. His bosses. Remember, this case is the JGG case. Judge allowed them to proceed pseudo-anonymously, so we don't know who they actually are, and ordered Trump to bring them back to the country, turn those airplanes around and blah, blah, blah. Trump said no. This went up to the Supreme Court. The judge said, you can't actually make him do this. This is a habeas claim. You have no jurisdiction over this case at all, Judge Boasberg, this fellow right here. And he said, well, I'm just going to hold on to the case anyways, because I'm going to exercise my contempt powers. Then he got backhanded on that and said, actually can't do that either. So then he said, what I'm going to do is call this a due process violation and try to make a writ of habeas corpus claim shoved in there for illegal aliens in foreign custody to get the benefits of the American Constitution. The Constitution is not for illegal aliens. The Constitution is not for foreigners. It says we the people. It's for America and American citizens, not for foreigners. So Boasberg is illogical in his entire basically existence. But what is happening here is he issued a pretty nasty order to Trump and said, you got to do a bunch of stuff. And the guy's such a spiteful maniac that, remember, we talk about these injunction bonds. Like, if you're going to make the president and the executive branch do something, how about the other side put some skin in the game on this? How about they put up the costs that it's going to cost the American taxpayer in terms of time, sweat, and equity in order to get these things done? Put up some money. Put your money where your mouth is, right? We've talked about that. Rule 65C, E, one of them. So what we see is the judge said, oh yeah, that's right. We will do an injunction bond. And here's what it is. $1. Oh, for the illegals. $1. Just post it. So they did. They posted $1. They posted a bond amount of $1. Thanks, Judge Boasberg, just for the nominal hit on this one. Now, the judge also said, look, you are now ordered to submit a notice on how you're going to facilitate the ability of the class of illegals in CCOT in El Salvador to seek habeas relief. How are you going to get them access to our court? You manage, however you have to do it, to get jurisdiction so they can file claims from a foreign prison when they're not in our custody. They're not U.S. citizens. They've got no right to be here. They were all ordered removed. There was withholdings of removals on some of them, and those are legally invalid or overruled by operation of the law in a multiple of different ways. We've talked about a lot of that here. But as you can see, the judge did that. And Trump said, not going to happen. We're not going to give a class of foreigners access to our courts. And so they filed an appeal relatively quickly. You see here, June 10th came in. Boom, all of this goes right up to the D.C. Circuit. Landed over here. This is what the Court of Appeals docket looks like. You see the notice of appeal came in. We got some new dates that have been scheduled. And the emergency motion came flying in here, courtesy of Hegseth, Noem, and Bondi, along with Rubio and the rest of them. So what Trump and the DOJ submitted was this. They said, all right, listen, D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, Judge Boasberg's acting like a big Boasberg again. We need you to do something about this. So we're asking for a stay, all right? He's asking for us to facilitate access to deported illegals, and we can't do that, and we're not going to do that. So they write the following to the Court of Appeals. All right, judges, for the third time in just 3 months, the district court, Judge Boasberg, has issued an unprecedented, baseless, and constitutionally offensive injunction that interferes with Trump's removal of dangerous criminal aliens from the United States. Now, the court's first 2 injunctions were blocked on appeal. He's already lost twice. He just keeps going. The third try is not the charm. If anything, it's new sua sponte theory, which means the judge just made it up on his own, that a class of removed aliens may sue outside of habeas, right? We've always said, they have a problem, they can file in habeas in the district where they're being held to challenge their removal. They didn't want to do that, though. They went and forum shopped in D.C. with Judge Boasberg. Then they went over to Maryland with Judge Zenas. And then they went over to Massachusetts with Murphy. And they're just shopping for these people. And they're getting everything they want. Now, to secure a due process right, they say, wait a minute. You're going to certify an entire class of illegals in CCOT, tell us they can sue outside of habeas when the Supreme Court said you literally cannot do that. It's a core habeas claim. He says they can secure a due process right, so they can sue to secure a due process right so that they then can seek habeas. Now that's all despite a conceded absence of any custody. And it's the least defensible one of all 3 attempts. This judge just keeps swinging and whiffing. You're like, just put the bat down, man. You're embarrassing yourself. This court should grant a stay pending appeal, and they did. Now, in March, the district court issued 2 injunctions prohibiting the government from invoking the AEA. Boasberg again, we've been fighting this for months now. To remove the United States from the United States, a group of aliens associated with Tren de Aragua, saying these people need to go. Trump said that they were intertwined with the Maduro regime in Venezuela. But the Supreme Court vacated those orders, remember? It went all the way up. And the Supreme Court also kind of minced on this and just send it back down. And Judge Boasberg, you know, this is basically a habeas claim. They're calling it a bunch of other things, but it's habeas. And so their claim is in habeas and you basically don't have jurisdiction. So he kind of took that and then said, well, but they did, before that came down, they didn't do something I asked them to do. And so now I can hold them in contempt, and under contempt powers, maybe I don't have jurisdiction over the habeas claim, but now since I kind of had jurisdiction, even though it was illegal, over this case, and they didn't do what I said, now I'm going to hold them in contempt and use all those powers. Then he got smacked down on that one too. And now we're back. The Supreme Court, and it's like, what is Congress going to do? Are you guys just going to let this happen? Are you guys just going to sit around? Maybe you should impeach him or start a proceeding on this, because this is now 3 strikes, man. But the Supreme Court vacated those orders because aliens' challenges to their removal had to be brought in habeas. And D.C. was not the proper venue for habeas. They were shopping for a forum there. Now, rather than relinquish jurisdiction, Baby Boasberg said, the district court judge pressed ahead with criminal contempt, said the government was supposed to comply with my orders. He said, what orders? The orders the Supreme Court just vacated? We're in trouble for not complying with your illegal order that you had no power to enforce at all, which is why we appealed it. He said, yeah, you should have done it. Literally, that was his argument. It doesn't matter. You still have to follow the orders, even if I'm reversed on appeal. When I'm not, until I'm reversed, you had to do the thing, and you didn't do the thing. Now, the district court, Boasberg, volunteered, however, that the government could purge its contempt. Says, well, we're going down this line, but you can save yourselves if you want to avoid sanctions, all you have to do is get custody over the people you deported. What? Wait a minute. So that means you're like ordering us to comply. No, I'm not. I'm just saying if you want to purge your contempt, then you can just comply. Okay. The Supreme Court literally said you can't do that. Well, I'm doing it. So they were then imprisoned in El Salvador. He said you got to bring them back so that they could have habeas relief. Now, as Trump's DOJ already noted and explained in an emergency appeal to this court before, that order violates Article 2. That threatens to usurp the president's power unless the president agrees to give up that foreign power. This court issued an administrative stay of that injunction, and that remains in place. Now, the district court has developed a third way to reach that same remedy. The district court acknowledged, after receiving diplomatic materials, that the United States does not have custody over these gangbangers sent to El Salvador. We don't have any physical control over them or constructive custody, meaning we don't even operate the levers in El Salvador who are in control. We don't have any ability to control these people at all. We have no custody, zero. Now, that finding foreclosed their argument for relief here. But the court, Boasberg, then circumvented that barrier, and he said, oh, okay, well, if I can't do it there, then I'm just going to find there's a due process violation. And as a result of that, he says, well, you can now facilitate habeas review, and then you can cure your contempt. But they say, all right, nice little scam there, Jeb. The district court's third try is too clever by half, writes Trump's DOJ. The court's lack of habeas jurisdiction cannot be cured by reconceptualizing this lawsuit as an implied constitutional cause of action to provide the class of illegals with a right to habeas. He says, well, I don't have habeas, but we're going to just say the Constitution allows them to sue to get habeas. Yeah. Now, the plaintiff's due process claims necessarily imply the invalidity of their removal to El Salvador, and Boasberg and the court, therefore, lack jurisdiction over those claims for the same reasons the Supreme Court identified in the first round of litigation, which is they are core habeas claims. Now, moreover, even if a freestanding equitable cause of action existed here, like there was a harm that is outside of this constitutional claim that you maybe could analyze under the injunctive rules, what, public benefit and imminent harm and irreparable injury and all the factors. They say even if that was true, this court's remedy is incoherent. Boasberg, yeah, you. And it's impermissible. The district court ordered Trump, Boasberg, to facilitate the alien's ability to seek habeas relief. But the court had already agreed. There is no habeas jurisdiction because a foreign sovereign has custody. So the only way to, quote, facilitate habeas review would be for Trump and the executive branch to somehow seize custody of the entire class of aliens from El Salvador. You want us to go in there by force or through coerced diplomacy at the hands of Jeb? A federal court obviously could not order the government to do either of those. Court of Appeals. The court order from Jeb is therefore untenable, because in the absence of custody or control, the alleged past deprivation of their ability to seek habeas is no longer redressable in this court. So put simply, Court of Appeals, the fact that the United States lacks custody or control over the gangbangers in CCOT does not just deprive Boasberg of jurisdiction, even he knows that, even he admitted it. That fact also forecloses the alien's ability to pursue any other equitable due process claims as a backdoor route to a non-existent habeas remedy. We're not going to allow foreign aliens some sort of constitutional exception to file foreign claims utilizing foreign claims of being admissible to the United States, utilizing our Constitution to do it. It's our Constitution. It is for us. It is not for the entire world. For everyone saying that all of these illegals get to come into our country and then demand that they get the same access and privileges as citizens devalues your and my citizenship. And we are tired of that. It is a sacred right and privilege, right, that we have here. And the idea that it's just watered down because everybody else deserves a piece of it is ridiculous, and it's not going to be happening anymore. So the Constitution does not provide some escape hatch and backdoor route. The district courts and Boasberg's increasingly fantastical injunctions, making this stuff up, continues to threaten serious harm to the government's national security and foreign affairs interest. This court should grant a stay pending appeal, and they did. But here's more. On March 15th, Trump issued a proclamation invoking the AEA. TDA got designated a foreign terrorist organization, and it said a bunch of things. On March 15th, 5 Venezuelan nationals who were detained in Texas sued in D.C., remember? And they all got ACLU and lib gangbang lawyers all coming in, working pro bono, saying stop them. We need a class-wide injunction, a class action, essentially, making them putative class members, and then issuing nationwide injunctions to block the government from removing anybody. Although they initially sought relief under both the APA, which they never should be allowed to do that, and by a writ of habeas corpus, they later dismissed the habeas claims. Do you know why? Because Boasberg told them to do so. He said, if you keep that claim in here, I'm going to have to dismiss your entire lawsuit because I don't have jurisdiction over that claim. So wink, wink, nudge, nudge, drop that. They did. Now, the court granted then an injunction, said, well, under the APA, created a class of gang members, all non-citizens who are subject to the AEA, and dropped that. We covered it here. The government appealed both those injunctions, filed an emergency motion for a stay. This Court of Appeals issued a divided ruling denying the stay. Each judge wrote separately. The Supreme Court, all the way up there, then vacated the orders for lack of jurisdiction. Says, sorry, Judge Boasberg, you lose. That was a while ago. Finding that their claims fell, wrote this, within the core of the writ of habeas corpus. They're suing about their detention. That is a habeas claim. So it must be brought in habeas. Quoting, the Supreme Court sent it back down to this maniac judge who is ignoring it multiple times, now on third time for a stay, and Congress is just sitting there like... Now, for core habeas petitions, they say jurisdiction, Supreme Court, lies only in one district, which is the District of Confinement. That is in Texas. That was not in Colombia. Now, by the time the district court issued its second injunction back on March 15th, some members of the original class had already been removed from the United States. They later arrived in El Salvador and were detained under El Salvador's own authority. Okay, you're holding these other people. They're not U.S. citizens. They're gone. Thanks for taking them. They're out of our country, and goodbye. Now, that led to further rounds of litigation. So the gangbang lawyers went crazy. On April 16th, the court issued a final order, said, you know what? Trump, you didn't turn those planes around. Therefore, I'm going to hold you in criminal contempt for having failed to return the aliens who were removed before the order was issued. Remember, we went through the timeline on this. When turn the plane around, it's in the air. Where was it? Did it stop in another country? What time did it take off? What time did it land? What was their aeronautical speed? It was ridiculous. The court offered that the government could purge that contempt by asserting custody, just bring them back. Otherwise, the court threatened Trump, said it would seek prosecution. They were going to appoint a private prosecutor if necessary to go investigate Trump, empowered by the courts. Maniac. The government immediately sought relief, DOJ writing here, explaining that the order required the president to do one of two things: either give up his foreign affairs powers by asserting custody over aliens held by a foreign sovereign, which means Judge Boasberg is in charge, or his prosecutorial powers by charging his own officials with contempt because some judge made him do it. Now, this court granted a stay, and that stay is in place, so Boasberg got backhanded again. So then separately, Boasberg invited the gangbangers back to amend their complaint, right? This is how rigged it is. It's like, okay, well, actually, we're just going to knock that claim out and actually come back and add this claim in later. This is a federal judge who's hailed as a hero. To address factual developments since March, a new set of plaintiffs, most of whom were already confined in El Salvador, then all joined in the case. They piled in there like a clown car, like they're crossing the border. They sought a writ of habeas corpus and moved to certify a class. It was all non-citizens in CCOT. It's like they get free lawyers, full class action, all the terrorists. You're all just part of this, like on TV commercial. Are you an MS-13 gangbanger who's been abused by the Trump administration? Call ACLU gangbangers, 1-800-ACLU gangbangers, and we'll represent you in your litigation for your sovereignty in America. Says here, all of them were invoked. These plaintiffs then moved for an injunction. They asked the government to cease and take all immediate steps to facilitate the release of the prisoners from CCOT and return the CCOT prisoners to the United States. Now, they say one of these class action gangbangers is actually currently in custody in New Jersey. The district court denied his motion for an injunction because apparently he's part of this class. Now, in opposition, the DOJ said, wait a minute, you can't do that, Judge. You lack jurisdiction. There is no habeas jurisdiction here. The United States doesn't have constructive custody over any of these people. And and the Supreme Court said, now after a hearing and after the government filed under seal documents demonstrating that the United States lacks constructive custody over these detainees, Boasberg then ordered additional discovery into the case. He said, well, we're going to keep digging until we find something I can hit you with. Following subsequent productions, we gave him more materials. Then Boasberg said, actually, I do not have jurisdiction. Boasberg came out, filing 148, electronic court filing. Says, I actually lack jurisdiction over the detainees' habeas claims because they had not shown that they were in the United States custody, right? So that's the end of the story. But he's going to find a new exception for foreign illegals to give them access to our constitutional due process, so-called provisions that he's going to make up out of nowhere, and then give them and the ability, the claim to move forward. Now, nevertheless, Boasberg said, well, we do have jurisdiction in equity. We're going to use some other principle that doesn't apply over their freestanding claim that their removal to El Salvador violated their due process rights under American law, I guess. So it applies to even foreigners, right? For every single thing. They got plenty of due process, by the way. So the court then unilaterally modified the class and then certified it, and he's doing whatever he wants. He's totally reckless. The district court granted an injunction based on this made-up due process claim that Judge Boasberg just took, ordered the government to facilitate the class to seek habeas relief, right? So they can't seek habeas relief. They missed the boat on that, like literally and figuratively. It's gone. They lost the right to do that. So the judge says, well, they should have a due process right, in order to seek habeas. It's not about seeking habeas. They can't do that. I can't do that. But they have a claim, and you have to facilitate the process to seek habeas. It's like totally ridiculous. Now, in considering whether this should happen, he says, we're going to win. Trump's DOJ. First of all, we're going to win. The court agreed that we don't have custody, and Boasberg is fundamentally incoherent. You hear that, Jeb? Incoherent. Coming out of your mouth. Writing. The court agreed. You said there was no custody over the plaintiffs, and therefore there's no jurisdiction for their claims in habeas. Yet the court, sua sponte, out of Boasberg's own booty, recognized a freestanding due process claim by which illegals could seek the opportunity to pursue habeas relief. What? That doesn't cure your jurisdictional problem. How do you have jurisdiction over that? Further, the lack of custody means the government cannot facilitate anything. That's the whole point. Okay? If you admit we don't have custody, then how can you order us to facilitate anything? At least not without engaging in some military. You want us to send in the SEAL Team 6 over there? So they cannot then seek equitable relief for these things. Now, because there is no custody, they lack jurisdiction. The Supreme Court already told you this once, and you got told again twice, Boas, that the Supreme Court made clear challenges to the proclamation must be brought in habeas where they're being held in the district of confinement. They were in Texas. You guys goofed. You went to shop for Boasberg. You should have just sued there in Texas, but you missed it, and now they're gone. Since plaintiffs are now being held in El Salvador, the district court could only have habeas jurisdiction over this case if the government had custody, either in physicality or constructive. Now, based on the evidence below, the court correctly concluded that we don't have custody. And constructive custody only exists if the imprisoning sovereign is our agent. But that's not what's happening here. We gave all these people to El Salvador. They're under Bukele's power, and that's it, not ours. The United States does not have control over the facility. And based on the record, following jurisdictional discovery where the judge was prying into the executive branch, Boasberg actually did correctly rule the United States doesn't have custody. And so therefore, I don't have jurisdiction over your habeas claims. But he made up a new claim for them. That should have been the end of this case, writes the DOJ. Indeed, as to the aliens held in El Salvador, this was the only theory that their lawyers even pursued. But the district court, sua sponte, okay, meaning There was no mention of an equitable claim for due process in their filings. They weren't even alleging this because it's so bozo. It's ridiculous. The judge just made it up. Sua sponte reasoned that it could exercise jurisdiction over a standalone due process claim targeting the government's failure to provide sufficient notice before they were removed. Now, doing so was reversible error, okay? Even apart from the merits, Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court has made clear, courts are not advocates. They must evaluate the theories pressed to them. They can't come up with their own. Having rejected already the gangbangers' constructive custody theory, saying we can just leverage El Salvador to do what we want, Boasberg should not have developed an alternative theory on his own. And that theory is plainly wrong also. Like, even if you go, what? He was, okay, fine, let's analyze it. Even this bizarre theory. This retrospective claim of inadequate notice in purpose and effect is a challenge to the removal. It's just framed a different way. It therefore sounds in habeas, right? They just come in, it's a detention and removal claim, and they just say, no, it's actually a lawsuit about Kristi Noem's decision to issue a memo to remove them. Well, she didn't have the power to issue that decision. You mean the decision that led to their removal that they're fighting over? No, not about that, but we just want to invalidate the whole thing, right? So that it can be much broader than just any one particular illegal. That's how they get the nationwide injunctions. So the Supreme Court said you can't do that, right? If it's a habeas claim, it's not a contract claim. It's not an APA claim. It's a detention claim. And so you have to bring that claim through the individual in habeas because each individual is unique. Some people might say, I'm not a gangbanger. Other people might say, well, I have a different story, right? I was a gangbanger. I'm a reformed gangbanger. I've got a claim for asylum. Someone else says I got a claim against a terrorism case. Someone else says I've got a withholding of removal justification, right? All different. So there's no commonality amongst them. You have to deal with them on an individual basis. Now, the District Court Boasberg's transparent workaround will not withstand merits scrutiny on appeal. He's going to lose this too. And as the Supreme Court has said, in rejecting the District Court's first set of orders, saying their claims for relief necessarily imply the invalidity of their confinement and their removal under the AEA. And so what that means is it's a habeas corpus claim, and it's got to be brought in habeas. Now, applying this logic, the Supreme Court vacated Jebb's orders that were in part premised on a due process claim that they did not get adequate notice. Now, then Boasberg concocted a new claim, but it's no different from the first. Since that claim is not brought in habeas because he doesn't have jurisdiction, this order fails just like the first. Boasberg's novel due process claim sounds in habeas for at least two reasons. Due process is a situation that's been vindicated in habeas petitions. That's what it's about. It's show me the body. You don't have lawful basis for keeping me in custody. So due process claims are core habeas claims. You're just trying to use a different word. Second, the point of the due process claim is to challenge the validity of the removal. That's what habeas is. So you can't just substitute the words. Boasberg's attempt to separate the due process challenge from the challenge to the validity of the removal slices the bologna coming out of his booty far too thin. If the District Court Boasberg were right, due process challenges to a criminal defendant's trial would not challenge the validity of the conviction, but the due process claims are core to habeas and cannot be brought through standalone equitable challenges. Lots of case law they cite for us here. And their analysis is also not helped. Boasberg's getting hammered by the Supreme Court as well. Remember, they wrote in dicta that it is skeptical of the self-defeating notion that the right to the notice necessary to actually seek habeas relief must itself be vindicated through individual habeas petitions, somehow by plaintiffs who have not received the notice. And so the majority in another case was responding to another argument about class-wide relief, saying that how can these claims proceed for a putative class, or they could, not that they would apply outside of habeas. And so this actually supports us. That case was a habeas case. It was also filed in the correct venue. So nothing in that case calls into question anything in this case. Remember, the Supreme Court also punted in another case. And if anything, Boasberg's due process theory here is even more of a core habeas challenge because it involves removals. And they were unable to metamorphosize their habeas claims and into due process claims. You can't just transition it, right? Just change its pronouns from habeas to due process. I don't have habeas, but I have due process. What's the due process about? Habeas. Okay, nice try. Even setting jurisdiction aside, this court's injunction remains indefensible. Boasberg, indefensible, because the purely retrospective due process claim that the court identified is not redressable in equity, which is a theory of the law, essentially. When we talk about equitable relief, it's about balancing the sides, talking about injunctive relief, saying here, he explains it. There is no way for the district court to order an injunction. They are not in United States custody, so there's nothing we can do. You can't force us to do anything. So you can't order us to do this or prohibit us from doing that. We can't redress it here. The separation of powers prevents this court from ordering Trump to retake custody from El Salvador. You want us to order an invasion of a foreign country? You want us to be ordered to directly negotiate a diplomatic deal? It's not in your power there, Jeb. Again, Boasberg and their court correctly recognize that the United States doesn't have custody, and so the judge lacked jurisdiction. But still, Boasberg, reckless, ruled that their due process rights were violated when they were removed. They didn't get enough notice. And to remedy that injury, then he said you have to facilitate them getting new hearings. Even assuming that he has jurisdiction, that remedy is also internally contradictory. The government lacks custody. We cannot facilitate anything. You admitted it. Don't you read your own rulings? Insofar as the court intended for the government to facilitate the filing of habeas in the United States while they're in El Salvador, well, that problem's pretty obvious too there, Jeb. As the district court itself ruled, no federal court would have jurisdiction over these claims if we don't have custody. And we're not going to release them. And so the ability to file a petition that no court would have jurisdiction over is not a remedy. It would not meaningfully provide them with anything. And so insofar as the district court intended for the government to regain custody, that's also an extraordinary and impermissible relief that you've already been rejected on twice. Separation of powers forecloses your attempt to do this. To regain custody of these gangbangers in CCOT, the government would have to take active steps to compel or persuade Bukele to release them. The district court's order thus yet again attempts to compel the United States to either use the military or force us to use certain diplomacies. Now, that extreme remedy unconstitutionally intrudes onto the executive's power over foreign affairs. Article 2 authorizes Trump to be the sole executor of the law, and Article 3 bars this court from meddling in these affairs. There is no standing here, and what they're claiming is speculative. Now here, as the district court found, El Salvador is not indifferent to any of this. In anticipating that the United States would be able to regain custody, mere guesswork is all they have. They're not providing any facts that they're going to transfer anything. They don't know anything about El Salvador because they don't run the branch. Thus, there is no evidence that El Salvador would release these people. And so this court doesn't have any power to create a remedy. So if you can't create a remedy, you can't hear the case. In the end, because it's not redressable by the courts, and we're not just here giving advisory opinions, like I think you should do this or do this, like you got to do this or else. In the end, the only injury is a past one. They said we were removed without adequate notice, but that is not an ongoing or imminent injury. There is no prospective reason for injunctive relief. And so all of this means we should have a stay. The other equitable factors also favor a stay. To start, the district court's order, Boasberg, if not stayed, is going to irreparably injure the government. The order is intruding upon Trump's foreign affairs authority, forcing the United States to engage in military actions or either sensitive negotiations and to regain custody of over 100 gangbangers from a foreign prison. It is difficult to conceive of a more significant harm to the separation of powers. This illustrates why the harm to the government and the public interest merge when the government seeks a stay. You risk alienating a strategic ally. This has devastated countries before. If the United States were to seek the return of over 100 gangbangers that El Salvador has imprisoned for the purpose of giving them an opportunity to be released into our country, our reliability as a foreign terrorist fighting organization would diminish. And the sensitive and weighty interests of national security belong with the president and not with you. And so, D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, you should grant a stay. These people are currently in El Salvador. We have no authority over them. And even if the district court's orders were not stayed, they would experience no change in their station. But if you don't grant a stay, Boasberg's dramatic and unprecedented order once again threatens to trigger a constitutional crisis, the sort of that this court diffused the last time we were here. The equities thus support Trump. Now, under the injunction, the government is required to submit a notice advising how they intend to facilitate them by tomorrow morning. The class of gangbangers, Boasberg said, give me an answer right tomorrow. Now, as set above, that requirement from Boasberg is premised on serious legal errors that would irreparably harm the government. And so you, Court of Appeals, should enter an immediate stay to prevent the harms from Boasberg, just like you did the last time that he demanded such a precipitous filing. And you should issue an immediate stay pending appeal. Signed by Drew Ensign over at the DOJ. Now, Court of Appeals in D.C. granted Trump victorious in the Court of Appeals. In a very short order, the stay attempt is successful. Upon consideration of the emergency motion for a stay pending appeal and an administrative order, it is ordered that those portions of Boasberg's crap order on June 4th, where he granted in part their motion for an injunction, granting in part their motion for class, and ordering a notice of Trump, all of that is hereby stayed. Boasberg blown out, pending further order of the court. The purpose of this stay is to give the court sufficient opportunity to consider the emergency motion for a stay pending appeal and should not be construed in any way as a ruling on the merits. All right. Now, other responses are due by 5 p.m. Monday and then 5 p.m. next week on the 18th. And so, of course, we'll keep our eye on this one. But while all this is happening, we see that Boasberg and the gangbang lawyers are fighting for these people every single day in the media, on the cables, on X, just saying, these are really good and innocent people. Well, here's Trish from Ohio over in Homeland explaining their take on what's happening in LA.
It's pretty extensive looting, Stuart. We've seen local jewelry stores being looted, Apple's, Nike's. We've also seen more cars being set on fire, rubber bullets being shot at law enforcement. That's been an update as of last night, despite the fact that there was a curfew. Thank God President Trump had the foresight to call in additional law enforcement. This really was sprung by the fact that on Friday, we had surrounding ICE enforcement officers at a federal building. There were about 1,000 protesters, rioters really, who are far outnumbering our ICE enforcement officers. They were pummeling them with rocks. They were setting fires, burning American flags, defacing public property. And when President Trump saw that, and the LAPD took more than 2 hours to respond to bring in backup, we knew we needed more law enforcement, more military presence on the ground to make sure that LA is safe.
There was all the starving people just breaking into that, I think, Adidas store and Apple store to feed their families food, and so their babies can survive. Now, here was Hegseth. He was in Congress today getting questioned on the Senate Appropriations Committee by this woman called Tammy Baldwin. She's a Democrat from Wisconsin, and she was getting into it with Pete. Here's how some of that sounded like about what is happening with the Insurrection Act.
In terms of active duty Marines being deployed to California neighborhoods.
Senator,
so you'll follow up with me?
Yes, Senator, but there's plenty of precedent of active duty troops being used to support law enforcement. Historical precedent.
I'm not disputing that. I am just asking you to cite the authority under which the active duty Marines are being deployed to California.
It's in the order, ma'am, but we'll make sure we get it to you as well.
Thank you. I want to dovetail on a couple of other comments also with regard to the lack of specific detail in the budget request for the Department of Defense. I take great pride in Wisconsin's contributions to our national.
We're sure she does. All right, so let's see if Pete says anything else here on this.
Sure, you get all the information, but what I would say is this is a historic investment in shipbuilding, both the defense industrial base and
all right,
ship.
so Hegseth talking budget stuff, but the Insurrection Act is something that has historical precedent. We'll see if Hegseth and the DOD does it, but as it stands, Boasberg blown out today. He's got a stay. Doesn't mean it's a stay forever. The DC Circuit could always come back and rule against Trump in the future, but the stay as it stands right now is a pretty good indicator that they're not liking what they're seeing from Boasberg, and he's already been backhanded a few times on this one, so another one coming soon. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, now let's talk about the new deportation notice. Alien enemies now getting deported under a new set of rules just released by the Trump administration. You see, here is something they submitted as an exhibit that's a part of this filing in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. This is a Texas deportation case, WMM. These people allowed to proceed pseudo-anonymously and as classes of gangbangers and illegals are now suing President Trump. And of course, this is up on appeal in the Northern District of Texas, from the Northern District of Texas. And we got a bunch of stuff happening here, but essentially they're notifying the court that we are in full compliance with due process. When we identify alien enemies, they are being afforded everything that we're required to be afforded. Here's how it works. They give us a nice breakdown of how the proclamation is lawful and specifically how this new AEA notice, how it works, how much time they get, what's in the document, and why it is appropriate to get them out of here quickly. So we'll find out, hopefully, how much time they're being afforded. But here is the form that illegals are getting. Alien enemies. Let's say you're an alien enemy. You broke into our country. You said, oh, my pupusa business is under attack, and came to America. You come in here and a heroic American ICE agent would say, you're an illegal, it's time to go. So they'd put your name here. They'd say, your sex is whatever. Come in here and they'd write the following. All right, the president is found, just so you're aware, illegal. The president has found that Tren de Aragua is perpetrating, attempting, or threatening an invasion or predatory incursion against the United States, and that Tren de Aragua members are thus alien enemies removable under federal law. So you, Kilmar Papusa Boy, has been determined, for example, he's MS-13, so it's a different provision. Well, let's say, I think there was the gay barber shop guy or whatever. He was a Venezuela guy. At least 14 years of age, not a citizen or lawful permanent resident. If you're a citizen of Venezuela, a member of Tren de Aragua, you check all four of those boxes, boom, you're gone. Accordingly, he or she shall be determined to be an alien enemy and shall be apprehended, restrained, and removed. Okay, so all of this is going to be provided to the illegal, and the supervisory officer is going to say, yep, I did the check, 4 boxes are good, got all that, my name and title are the following, signed on this date. Then they give all this to the illegal. Dear illegal, I am a law enforcement officer authorized to apprehend, restrain, and remove alien enemies. You have been determined to be at least 14 years of age, not a citizen or lawful permanent resident of the United States, a citizen of Venezuela, and a member of Tren. Accordingly, you are subject to removal. Trump invoked the Alien Enemies Act, and you've been determined to be subject to apprehension and removal. Until you are removed, you will be detained. Any statement you make now or while you were in custody may be used against you. This is not a removal under the INA. You may be removed from the United States. There it is. 7 days. So we've had a battle over how long? 30 days, 24 hours. How much time are they giving them? 7 days following receipt of this notice and warrant. If you desire to contest your removal under the AEA and under Trump's proclamation, you may do so by filing a petition for a writ of habeas corpus, as always, in the district where you're detained. Here, that's in Texas. You may retain counsel to assist you in the filing of these petitions. You're going to be permitted to make telephone calls for that purpose and a list of attorneys who may be available will be provided to you upon your request. After being removed from the United States, you must request and obtain permission from the Secretary of Homeland Security to enter or attempt to enter the United States at any time. Should you enter or attempt to enter the United States without receiving this permission, you will be subject to immediate removal and may be subject to further prosecution and imprisonment. Comprende? Si, senor. Signs that puppy, signs that here. I personally served a copy on this person with a copy in a language that he or she understands. I also ensured that the notice and the warrant was read aloud to that person in a language he or she understands. All right. Got it? Alien's name, departure date, port of departure, manner of departure, signature, title, and the photograph of the illegal and the fingerprint signed there. Signature of the alien and signature of the official taking the fingerprint. All signed it right there. Now, that sounds like pretty good due process. Looks like they got plenty of notice, 7 days. They wanted 30. That's a pretty nice compromise. They were arguing maybe 24, 48 hours. So 7 days, pretty nice. So the rest of this was submitted in the appeal. So this is an important case going up in the Texas Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. We see this coming out. They say, all right, listen, this lower level court entered its order. And so we're appealing all of this, asking a couple key questions. Whether our notice procedures comply with due process and statutory requirements. So 7 days in a notice that is in their language. Is that sufficient? We've changed some procedures. We've revised our procedures. Notice is now going to be given in a language they understand. They're going to have an option of attorneys. They're going to have 7 days. Golly. And that process, they're all lawful. This court should give us all now the right to dismiss their habeas petitions. Here's why. First of all, their challenges to the proclamation itself fail because the AEA grants the president near unlimited authority to identify and countermand foreign invasions or predatory incursions, all of which were happening now all across our country. By the same token, the AEA gives the courts an exceedingly limited role consistent with their institutional competence and constitutional responsibility to interfere. Now they're inverting that. They ask this court to set aside Trump's judgment and decide for itself whether thousands of members of a designated terrorist organization who have poured across the border at the direction of a hostile foreign nation and appear poised to conduct targeted killings and sow terror, whether that really constitutes a predatory incursion or invasion. Some judge is going to make that decision. Yeah. Now, that kind of second guessing is not the role of the judges, and in all events, it misreads the law. Not only does it fall comfortably, Trump's proclamation, within the law, it satisfies what is required here. And their challenge to our removal procedure lacks no better basis. They demand that all enemy aliens should also receive the factual basis for their detention before they decide whether to pursue habeas. But that's not necessary or prudent. Once an alien is detained and so informed, he knows everything he needs to file a habeas petition, saying, I'm not a TDA member. Further, to the extent that it's appropriate for the government to disclose its evidence at any point, it should be during the proceedings. The government can adequately protect national security sensitivities, right? So the gangbang lawyers are now coming out and saying, we want all like discovery. We want, multiple hearings and status conferences and multiple, ways we can challenge this before they actually get removed. The equities and public interest similarly cut against the preliminary injunction. They asked the court, to pretermit a national security decision that came from the president. On the other side of the ledger, they offer nothing more. There's just generic concerns about improper removal. What have we done improperly? The procedures here exceed what's offered in other contexts, and they give alien enemies more than ample time to demonstrate that they're not members of TREN. In short, there's nothing in the Constitution or anything else that supports their claim, and we're going to win this. Now, enacted in 1798, the AEA gives Trump broad power to designate, detain, remove aliens from the U.S., not only during a declared war, but also in response to a threatened invasion or predatory incursion. The act is very clear. outlines procedures for how this works. Presidents have done this a lot. In fact, Madison, what's up, he did it. World War I, Wilson, one of the worst ever, maybe the worst ever. In World War I, issued several proclamations, so he's not a good example. Roosevelt, also pretty terrible. So, yeah, but he did it too. And they love them, okay? The left loves these people. So they love President Wilson. They love President Roosevelt. They say, look, and they did that. Remember, Roosevelt did that with citizens, interned American citizens, the Japanese. Remember that? Nobody wants to talk about that on the left. Now, the president's AEA proclamation is going after foreign invaders, not citizens. A little more appropriate there. They're here in our country waving their flags around. And how is that a peaceful protest, by the way? How is it a peaceful protest when you have a show of force of people obstructing streets and protesting the government, waving foreign flags around? How is that a peaceful protest? It's an implied threat from an invasionary force. That's why they're waving their flags around. They're not American flags. So by virtue of that symbolism, it's not peaceful, in my opinion. And they're here, and they're supported by the foreign governments. You've got the Senate president of Mexico now drawing new lines and saying we should have a border around what is their land. The group originated in Venezuelan prisons and is now flood everywhere. The TDA has infiltrated the United States. Over the past 3 years, they've established a strong presence in at least 40 states. And their proliferation has fostered crimes. They do all sorts of bad things. But the Democrats love them. They've even taken over territory, like in Colorado. Remember when they took that building over? Behind TDA is Venezuela. They have used groups to intimidate and eliminate dissidents abroad. Even the FBI says this. The FBI said it is likely that Venezuela will similarly leverage TDA members in the United States as proxy actors to threaten, abduct, and remove the U.S.-based members of the Venezuelan diaspora who are vocal Maduro critics. Take them out here. The long-term strategy is to destabilize democratic countries, and the FBI has determined that Maduro himself oversees the use of TDA and their decision. So after Trump came in, they made the finding, issued a proclamation, started taking care of business, then said, you have to go. It said anybody is subject to immediate apprehension and removal. And we've done a lot of this. In fact, 1,238 arrests for TDA gang members. Nice numbers. Procedure, we got then, they sued, they said, hey, you can't remove us. We're not gangbangers. The district court ordered a bunch of stuff. We responded in 24 hours. Then they filed a notice of appeal. Remember, all this went up to the Supreme Court. This is the case where Amy Coney Barrett and the rest of the libs were all screeching, wait, she didn't act in 14 hours for the illegals. Well, everybody else's cases, like, I don't know, for example, like the J6 cases, like how quickly did they address that 1512C problem where hundreds of J6ers were illegally charged with an invalid statute? How quickly was the Supreme Court acting on the citizens there? Nowhere. How quickly were they acting when you sued the government to stop the lockdowns? Not quickly at all. But if it's an illegal, woo, man, they act quick. That same afternoon, they went up to the Supreme Court. Early on the 19th, the Fifth Circuit denied the appeal, almost simultaneously. Then the Supreme Court came back down and said, don't remove these people. Then the Supreme Court vacated this court's judgment and stopped the government from removing these class members until further decision came down. Now, the court held that aliens subject to the removal must have sufficient time and information. The court didn't say how much time. They said the Fifth Circuit can figure it out. That's what we're doing. But it deemed insufficient notice that was 24 hours before removal. They said that's kind of quick. So the Supreme Court remanded the case. It sent it back down because they couldn't handle it themselves. They said, can you figure this out, Fifth Circuit? It's fine, I guess. Fifth Circuit was even like begrudgingly taking the case. Like, okay, I guess, pretty pathetic for the senior partner to be handling like a critical thing like this to the new team, but okay, fine, we'll do it. The Supreme Court remanded this case and said, well, why don't you guys figure it out? And the court clarified what they need to do. Now, TDA members have proven difficult and dangerous to keep in detention. In fact, there are at least 176 Tren de Aragua members who are currently detained in Dallas, many of whom have been there since April. In fact, because TDA members pose a danger to the public, they must be detained. which also limits ICE's ability to detain other criminal aliens by filling up bed space. And because TDA was founded and grew in prisons, they're pretty good at recruiting and organizing, in the prisons. Keeping so many members in detention poses a grave risk to ICE personnel. For example, on April 26, 23 Tren putative class members barricaded their housing unit. They covered the surveillance cameras and blocked the housing unit windows. They threatened to take hostages in the facility and ICE officers. They attempted to flood the housing unit by clogging toilets. They refused to comply with orders for several hours. Now, due to the danger of all this, they had to move these people out. And so in light of all of this, the government revised its notice, okay? The new notice form we just read tells aliens in a language they can understand that they can contest their removal by filing a habeas petition. Further informs them they can get gangbang lawyers if they want, make calls for that purpose, and they'll even be given a list. Aliens will be given 7 days from receipt of this notice to file their petitions, and they will not be removed under that. Aliens who do file will not be removed until it's resolved. Even under the previous notice, numerous aliens were able to file, including the people in this lawsuit. So they're trying to stop us from doing this. But as we know, judicial review of this act is highly unlikely. It's highly limited. And Tren de Aragua is clearly committing a predatory incursion. The president properly found that they were invading our country. The proclamation was drafted appropriately. Their due process challenge is now being processed under new notice requirements. And any other procedural problems that they're claiming all lack merit. And so they cannot satisfy any of the elements of the other claim. And that the rest of this is just beefing out what we've already caught. So we'll fast forward here to the end and we'll see what they're asking for in summation. They say they're going to fail. The government is going to win when we balance the equities, strongly favoring the government. The president has determined these are campaigns of terror and violence. And the record reinforces the point. They threaten to take hostages, and if you don't allow us to remove these people, it's going to stymie the president's ability to do his job. And so, for these reasons, the court should remand this with instructions to deny the injunction and allow us to do our jobs. They've got proper notice. They're all now getting 7 days, so everybody can just relax over there at the ACLU, the gangbang team, and they can just file their petitions as required, and we'll deal with them one at a time in their district of confinement. Now, we have Caroline Leavitt was out today, and she explained we're removing people, and this is a warning to the left-wing radicals who are out there.
And let this be an unequivocal message to left-wing radicals in other parts of the country who are thinking about copycatting the violence in an effort to stop this administration's mass deportation efforts. You will not succeed. Any lawlessness will only strengthen this president's resolve to defend the majority of Americans who want to live their lives peacefully, free from the fear of violent, criminal, illegal aliens. As President Trump said, order will be maintained and illegal aliens will be expelled from our country. And let this be an...
Thank you, Caroline Leavitt, for explaining. And following that up was Pam Bondi. And Pam Bondi came out to answer some questions about the Insurrection Act and how the DOJ will be involved in resolving these protests and these deportations.
I do have a 9 o'clock meeting, you guys.
Attorney General, we've heard the president use the word insurrectionist repeatedly. What is his bar for invoking the Insurrection Act? And can you describe some of the conversations around that particular topic that have been underway?
Well, sure. Right now it's keeping California safe. If Gavin Newsom isn't going to keep California safe, we are. You know, they imposed a curfew last night. I think that helped a bit. But today, we wanted them to declare, they didn't declare an economic disaster out there with all of the businesses. Had they done that, Kelly Loeffler and the Small Business Association could have come in and helped, given federal aid to all of these businesses in California. We've been seeing on the news all of these drugstores getting robbed, getting looted. The Apple store just got raided. I mean, we're all watching this live on the news. And this isn't just looting to me. You think people just run in, take something, leave, and nothing happens? We're using the Hobbs Act. We are charging robbery to protect Californians under this. If you loot a store, we are going to charge you with robbery under the Hobbs Act, and you're looking at maximum 20 years in prison. But we're going to prosecute you for that. Identifying people now, it's a different world. The guy with the cinder blocks, we were able to identify him. Great FBI work, DEA, ATF, all working together with ICE, with Homeland Security. Great partnership out there. And our National Guard, to wrap back to your question, our National Guard, our Marines, they have come in to protect our buildings, the Marines have come in to protect the National Guard. It is total chaos out there. We're all watching it on the news.
We are.
And they're throwing bricks. We had a law enforcement officer injured. They're throwing bricks at cars, and this is very orchestrated. They're not just cinder bricks. They had hammers in place. They're breaking them up. We've all seen on the news where the sidewalks, they're coming in with these huge sledgehammers, breaking up the sidewalks and taking these huge pieces of concrete, throwing them off a bridge, throwing them at people. It's truly a miracle that no one has been seriously injured or killed yet. But we're going to do everything within our legal authority to protect our law enforcement officers and all the people in California right now.
And the federal buildings.
You guys, this is serious out there. We want to protect
serious,
people.
guys.
We want to protect law enforcement and all the hard-working people there who are trying to go to work every day. Their businesses are shuttered. They can't do anything because of this, and it has to stop.
Can I follow up on the legal authority part of that?
Let's ask that again. What is the threshold for invoking the Insurrection Act? And beyond California,
Sure.
Are you seeing examples in other cities where the president might have to consider?
Sure.
What?
Well, first, in other cities, we've seen it in New York, but what happened in New York was very different. NYPD came in right away. NYPD came in and shut it down. We all believe in peaceful protests. You saw New York. There were peaceful protests happening in New York. Much different situation. So law enforcement, they need to have their hands untied where they can do their jobs. Right now in California, what we're doing is working. By bringing in the National Guard, by bringing in the Marines right now to back them up, to protect our federal buildings, to protect the highways, to protect the citizens. So right now in California, we're at a good point. We're not scared to go further. We're not frightened to do something else if we need to. Right now we're trying to.
With hammers banging up sidewalks? Is it something else? Like what's the threshold for?
Well, right now we're hoping it's going to get under control. We hope the curfew will work, and we're going to continue to do everything we can to keep California safe if the government of California is not going to help them. One more question.
One question. The administration has talked a lot about defending law enforcement over the last week or so that these protests are going on, but you've been criticized for having a double standard with the president pardoning all these people who attacked police officers on January 6th in his first day in office. How do you answer that criticism?
Well, this is very different. These are people out there hurting people in California right now. This is ongoing, no longer. We're going to protect them. We're going to do everything we can to prosecute violent criminals in California. California is burning. These people are waving Mexican flags, yet they don't want anyone to go back to Mexico. They're burning American flags. This is the United States of America, and we're going to protect Americans. We're going to protect all citizens out there. Thank you.
All right, so Pam Bondi, Attorney General, coming out. They are waving Mexican flags. Yeah, it is really quite shocking, but to be expected. So we've got this one, Trump and the DOJ delineating the new rules for deportation. 7 days. They get a list of attorneys of the right to call. They don't get to see the evidence, but they can file their claims and deal with it accordingly. So we'll see what the Fifth Circuit does. Obviously, this is a pretty big one because they can help settle down something the Supreme Court punted away on. And we'll keep our eye on this one. Thank you for subscribing and joining as we do. All right, we got one more good segment, my friends. And then we'll hear from you. Fox News reporting an illegal alien has been charged with attempted murder for throwing Molotov cocktails at the officers in the LA riots. The guy was caught doing this right here, lobbing these inflammatory explosive devices to try to cause perhaps death and mayhem. And the quote came out from Trisha from Ohio, and she explained that Emilio Guardano Galvez is a criminal illegal who threatened the lives of federal law enforcement officers by attacking them with a Molotov cocktail during a violent riot in LA. Tricia McLaughlin said ICE arrested Garduno Galvez, and he's now being charged with attempted murder. These are the types of criminal illegal aliens that rioters are fighting to protect. And here's a photograph of the guy attempting to murder ICE agents. And we'll take a look and see if we can find the full indictment, but it has not been posted yet. We did see this press release from the DOJ saying federal complaints charge SoCal residents, illegals, with assault, throwing Molotov cocktails at officers during civil unrest. And so here it is. Got the same guy here. I'm not seeing an attempted murder charge, though. I do see possession of unregistered destructive device. And so we haven't seen the indictments yet, so I'm sure those are going to be forthcoming, or the criminal complaints, rather. But 2 LA County men have been charged with federal criminal complaints for possessing Molotov cocktails during recent civil unrest in downtown LA. Both defendants have been charged with possession of an unregistered destructive device. And this is Galvez, so maybe there is not a murder charge, but it's still a pretty serious felony, 10 years in prison. Both defendants are in custody. Quigogi was ordered detained for his initial appearance happening next week on Tuesday. Galvez is expected to make the initial appearance in the coming days. When protesting crosses into violence, the Attorney General said, this is a problem. 10 years in jail. We're not going to relent. According to an affidavit, they say on the evening of June 7th in Paramount, Galvez lit and threw a Molotov cocktail over a wall where the LA County Sheriff's Department deputies were engaging in crowd control activities and then ran away, trying to torch everybody over there. A violent crowd had assembled in that location earlier in the day near a staging area for federal agents who were preparing for immigration enforcement operations. Now, according to an affidavit filed for Quigogi, he possessed a Molotov while holding a lighter during civil unrest near federal buildings in the Civic Center. They also saw him with the device, quickly arrested him. He attempted to flee, he threw it. Charges separate were other people called Christian Garcia and Renee Luna. Misdemeanors, assault on federal officers. Both defendants going to make their initial appearances. These 2 lower-level charges, assault, and no real communication about whether they're legal or not. According to the court documents, Garcia threw objects at law enforcement personnel stationed outside Homeland. Someone else threw water bottles and beer cans at officers during the same protest, both arrested. That's good. A lot of J6ers, their assault was with water bottles. Says the Bureau of Alcohol and ATF, along with others, are investigating this, and so they got arrested. Now, I'm not seeing a murder charge, but this is only a federal criminal complaint, right? So, in other words, what happens is they'll hit you with a complaint to arrest you and keep you in custody while they process a more substantive indictment proceeding. We just saw this, in fact, with Representative Monica McIver. She got criminally charged in a complaint that was drafted by an FBI special agent. Then a few weeks go by, they present all of that same evidence, or more or less, to a grand jury, and then the grand jury makes a decision about the prosecution. So you might see the murder charge come down later. Certainly, I think throwing it at a group of cops is a lot more than possession. So would not be surprised if this is where this is going. Tricia probably intending to say that they're being investigated for this and probably being presented to the grand jury accordingly. Now, others are getting arrested. Edner Danilo, a citizen of Colombia, he was arrested as soon as he was released from jail. They let him go, right? That's the problem. If they would just hold these people, then ICE could come get them. But they don't. They release them into custody. Then they go like tag at Home Depot and they have a force field. As soon as your left foot touches Home Depot property, it's like you're on a base in baseball, like you're totally safe. You can be like somebody who abuses kids, kill more, beat the hell out of your wife, traffic humans, whatever. As long as your left foot's on Home Depot, and you're like, up, can't arrest me. You just murdered that dude. Sorry, I'm at a Home Depot. Okay, I guess that's right. Constitution says we can't do anything about that. So they arrested him. Ojeda has been convicted of disorderly conduct, and so they just let him go. They should have just held him, illegal, turn him over to ICE. Don't have to go track him down at Home Depot. How about that? But they don't want to do that. We've also got this person. I saw this from Breakthrough News over on X. Sounds like they had somebody who was out on the scene. This came out on, is going, I think, pretty viral, almost 5 million views over on X. Says the U.S. military is now speaking out. So this woman apparently has flipped in Dallas, Texas 2 days ago, was speaking out against Trump. Here's a little bit of this.
We are not pawns for Donald Trump's agenda. Why now? It's because the military was called upon innocent protesters. We, in our oath to serve, we serve the people of the United States. The Constitution, these constitutional rights are being stripped and just denied, and the military will not be pawns to that. So I'm calling upon the conscience of military.
So I don't know if she's an active duty person or what the backstory is here, but I'm sure the military is looking into that pretty aggressively, and don't see a name on there or anything. Collado, maybe somebody's looking into that. So anyways, she's out there speaking to the public about constitutional rights for illegal aliens. Did she forget what country she's in? What country she's fighting for? She fighting for Mexico or America? Because in America, American citizens have rights and not illegal aliens to the same degree that maybe they would like to have because they want to make them citizens. That's not how this works. So we'll see what happens to her if she in fact is an active duty person who has flipped. But we also got an announcement about the arrests that are taking place. So new charges coming in. Here's the U.S. Attorney over there in California, Bill Esseley.
Last Saturday, one defendant, Emiliano Galvez, hid behind a fence and threw the destructive device at a sheriff's deputy, then ran away. Deputies gave chase and arrested him. That's the video you actually see playing right there. The following day, a police officer apprehended the other defendant, Rocky Quigui, after spotting him with a Molotov cocktail in his hand. Officers witnessed him throw the device in the air and then arrested him with a lighter in his right hand. I commend our prosecutors and our law enforcement partners for swiftly taking action against these individuals. Our community must be kept safe for peaceful protests and against thugs and criminals looking to start trouble. We expect more charges to be filed in the coming days and weeks. If you took part in these riots and were looking to cause trouble, we will come looking for you. These defendants are charged with possession of an unregistered explosive device in violation of 26 United States Code Section 5861D. Possessing a Molotov cocktail or another destructive device is punishable by up to 10 years in federal prison.
All right, and we'll see if more charges come down the line, but that's a good start. We also had Caroline Leavitt was out today explaining who else some of these arrestees are. Here's what that sounded like.
Sanctuary cities and states will no longer be allowed to shield illegal criminals from deportation. Just take a look at some of the illegal monsters who were taken off the streets in Los Angeles in recent days. A Vietnamese national, a known gang member with a conviction for second-degree murder. A Mexican national with convictions for child molestation who was armed with a dangerous weapon and had previous arrests for robbery and domestic violence. A Filipino national with convictions of rape, assault, burglary, and theft. A Mexican national convicted of statutory rape, narcotics violations, and hit and run. A Nicaraguan national with convictions for domestic violence and hit and run, and a previous arrest for willful cruelty to a child. And an illegal alien from Mexico who was arrested after allegedly throwing a Molotov cocktail at law enforcement officers during the Paramount riots on Saturday. He is now being charged with attempted murder. Law-abiding American citizens do not want these public safety threats living in their communities, no matter what Democrats like Karen Bass and Gavin Newsom may claim. And let this be an unequivocal message to left-wing radicals in other parts of the country who are thinking about copycatting the violence in an effort to stop this administration's mass deportation efforts. You will not succeed. Any lawlessness will only strengthen this president's resolve to defend the majority of Americans who want to live their lives peacefully, free from the fear of violent, criminal, illegal aliens. As President Trump said, order will be maintained and illegal aliens will be expelled from our country.
That's right. Thank you, Caroline Leavitt, for explaining that to all of us. Now, here was a clip of the president of the Senate of Mexico. Mexican government leadership is now waving around signs saying that Mexico is entitled to Texas Arizona, New Mexico, and California, basically the entire Southwest. All right. It's all their land. Here's what he said in this video. And just to be clear, these are not even peaceful protests, okay? If you're in a foreign country protesting the government enforcing the law and you're waving a foreign flag, you're not committing acts of violence, let's say, but you're not there on friendly, peaceful terms. We come in peace with foreign flags saying that it's our land. Give me a break, right? It's a hostile group of people. Where are the illegal aliens waving the American flags around, saying, hey, I've been here for 20 years, paying taxes. I've started a charity and I've built all these amazing businesses and I love America. And I just didn't do the thing because whatever. Like, where are all of the sympathetic abuelas out there, just kind of, hey, we just got caught up in this thing. We're good people. We're very sympathetic. All the old Hispanic Mexican ladies, they were just like adorable out there. Like, just here, just have some more food. Like, where are they all at? Saying, I love America. We want to be a part of your country. This is tremendous. Please don't kick us out. We're awesome people. Nowhere. They're nowhere to be found. They're apparently all just, I don't know, at home. Not engaged. They could be out there with their American flags explaining and showing a different side of the people that they are apparently a part of, but they're not. Instead, we get this crap. It's the Reconquista that is happening right now. It's Aztlan. It's the plan of San Diego that they are reenacting, trying to recreate. Back then, you look that one up, they wanted to eliminate all non-Hispanic Caucasians. Afuera for all of us. If they would have gotten their way to take back this land. And now this maniac is down in Mexico. We got this one with Claudia Sheinbaum, who's apparently not Mexican and not Catholic, who's the president down there, also saying that they're getting ready to mobilize. I was at Trump Tower, he says. When President-elect Trump was 16 days away from taking the oath. I said, yeah, we'll pay for a wall, but we're going to build a wall like the 1830s. Yeah, for like 15 to 20 years, give or take. They couldn't manage the land. They got their independence from Spain for like 20 years. Then they lost all that land too, because their entire, military was basically ineffective. So the Texans kicked them out. Then they were getting abused by the Indians. So they signed the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. We paid them $15 million in $3 million installments over a number of years. We gave a bunch of people the option. Do you want to stay? Do you want to go? Most people wanted to stay because Mexico was a joke. And now he's going to say, like, that's our land, like we've been Mexico forever. You got your independence after we did.
No era todo México. Si ustedes pueden ver, quizás un tercio.
Listen to how he talks too. It's like this is culturally deep for them. And they never want to talk about it, but it's all coming out. It's the Reconquista. It's happening right now. This is what's happening in their Senate. This came over from Colin Rugg. Rebuild these numbers. Reclaim the lost land.
Nosotros estábamos asentados ahí antes que la nación hoy conocida como Estados Unidos. Los tratados de Guadalupe
Before Mexico too.
Establecen derechos para la gente asentada en esos territorios que no se respetaron. La ciudad de Nuevo Laredo, Laredo era una ciudad mexicana, y la ciudad de Nuevo Laredo se formó con los mexicanos que vivían en Laredo y que no quisieron quedar del lado de los Estados Unidos y se vinieron a lo que es territorio nacional. Con esta geografía, ¿cómo puede hablar de liberar Los Ángeles y California el gobierno de Estados Unidos? ¿Liberarlos de quién? Los mexicanos y mexicanas.
Who are we liberating Californians from? He's saying they're liberating them from us. He already thinks they've conquered LA.
Los que están asentados en ese lugar están asentados en lo que ha sido su patria. Los nombres no engañan. El idioma que más se habla en Los Ángeles es español. No necesitas hablar inglés para estar.
Don't even have to speak English if you want to live in LA.
Y estamos en la situación actual. Esto es parte de Estados Unidos. Sí, el gobierno de Estados Unidos tiene derecho a instrumentar las medidas que considere migratorias convenientes, ciertamente, pero no tiene derecho a violentar la dignidad
Give me a
de las
break.
personas migrantes. No tiene derecho a
The dignity of the migrants. Stupid platitudes from a man who doesn't even want to honor his country's treaties. Pretty pathetic. But anyways, he's saying that the dignity of the migrants, what about the dignity of the American people? We have the absolute right to throw them out. You're lucky it's being treated so kindly.
separar las familias. No tiene derecho a someterlos al sufrimiento, a la persecución.
Well, there is going to be a little suffering because moving sucks. Nobody likes to move, and they have to move. They have to leave. So get U-Hauls or whatever, Mexican hauls, whatever. They got free Ubers in. They can pay their way out. And this is much broader than they're letting on normally. Okay, they kept this stuff under the radar for decades, my whole life. It's always been a simmering thing in Arizona, like the Reconquista, like they think it's theirs. And you drive around parts of Phoenix and LA and many border states, and it looks like Mexico. It doesn't look like the United States. Everything's in Spanish. There's no English anywhere, and it looks like a dump. So what happens is they then, I think essentially are saying that's ours now. Okay, LA is ours. We have it. You cannot take it back. And they're openly talking about it now in public, and that is curious. So be cautious out there, my friends. Now, meanwhile, Homeland Security, public service announcement from Homeland Security: help your country locate and arrest the illegal aliens and the illegal invaders like that senator and president of Mexico loves. To report criminal activity, very easy. Call 866-2HS2-ICE. That's 866-DHS2-ICE. On your touchtone phone, that's 866-347-2423. Help your country and yourself report all foreign invaders to ICE. And we also have some very nice montages created by Chief Michael Banks. He's the chief of the Border Patrol, and he's putting together these little rage videos, which are just amazing. Here's one. And I think there was supposed to be some audio on there, but may not be hearing it. But the arrests are happening all over the place. And here was another one. Allie Bradley said, a plane carrying detainees arrested yesterday in Omaha. Nebraska, during worksite enforcement operation, took off moments ago to Texas and Louisiana, saying it's carrying a bunch of people, and they got final orders of removal going right back to Mexico and then going back to their other respective countries. So long and bye-bye. Now, Caroline, one more time today, got into it with a stupid reporter in the media. And here's what this one sounded like after this woman asked a very dumb question to Caroline.
He supports the First Amendment. He supports the right of Americans to make their voices heard. He does not support violence of any kind. He does not support assaulting law enforcement officers who are simply trying to do their job. It's very clear for the president what he supports and what he does not. Unfortunately for Democrats, that line has not been made clear, and they've allowed this unrest and this violence to continue, and the president has had to step in.
So if there were peaceful protests on Saturday for the military parade, President Trump would allow that?
Of course the president supports peaceful protests. What a stupid question. Raquel.
Thank you so much, Caroline.
He supports the First Amendment. He supports...
What a stupid question. Dumb journo? Oh, no, she didn't. Yes, she did. She did do it. Yes, she did. All right. So, you kind of, I don't know where she's from or whatever. But yeah, I mean, don't ask stupid questions in the press briefing room. Womp, 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 womp. All right. So shout out to Caroline Levitt for the smackdown to dumb journos asking dumb questions. And shout out to the DHS for charging illegal aliens with attempted murder and getting them off of our streets. All right, my friends. It has been a beautiful and joyous and tremendously amazing stream today. Thank you for being here and joining us. If you're just getting here, quick recap on what we talked about. We started the show off talking about James Boasberg, aka Jeb, the Obama judge, who has been a thorn in Trump and America's side for the last 5 months. But he has now gotten backhanded again by the Court of Appeals in D.C. We read through Trump's emergency motion to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, where they explain, we've been here like 3 times already, and you got to stop this, and we're back. So do something. The D.C. Circuit, of course, did. We got reaction from Tricia from Ohio. We heard a little bit from Hegseth. Then we turned our attention over to the Alien Enemies Act. This is the new form that alien enemies are going to be presented. You can see they're getting 7 days to contest their removal. They have to file in their district of confinement, which has always been the law. And once it's signed, the clock starts. So then they are removed. Unless a habeas petition is filed, then they can stick around. We also checked in with Caroline Levitt on this one and heard a bunch from Pam Bondi explaining things are pretty bad out there. So we got to do our job. And ICE is making arrests. So someone charged with attempted murder, we think. We don't see the actual charges yet, but probably coming down the pike later on. Other illegals getting arrested, getting deported, and the Mexicans are still talking about taking over about a third of the United States. So get ready for that. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. And thank you so much for supporting our work. Thanks for subscribing to our channel if you haven't already. We'd love to have you join us when we go live. Thank you for these amazing donos. Welcome to our new membos. Thank you to our mods who are clipping away for us and keeping things oh so nice and orderly. And we got some new membos coming in, man. Yes. Oh, yes, we do. Oh, man, there was one from John. Hey, what's up? It's Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, my friends. What's that guy's name? Fonzie? Something like that. Happy Wednesday, my friends. All downhill from here. Thank you, John, for that. We got Real Encryptus. Hey, shout out to our friends on Twitch over there. And thanks for watching on Twitch. So someone asked a great question about Twitch. They said, can you turn on the membership thing over there? And I don't have any option to do anything because we don't have really a lot of people watching on Twitch. So if you watch on Twitch, then once I get enough people watching over there, then I think I can activate some features and we might be able to turn on some Membo stuff over there. And I think if you are an Amazon Prime Membo, you can get free Membo. Someone was explaining to me. I have no idea how it works. But shout out to our friends on Twitch. I think that's where that came from, but I might be wrong. Anyways, that might be from Rumble. Anyway, shout out to What's Up, the Real Encryptus. Thanks for raiding us, my man. This old guy says, Boasberg needs desperately to go to remedial law school courses. He's legally a moron. I don't think he's intentional. I mean, he's probably a moron, but he's also malicious. Like, he knows what he's doing. He's engineering these little made up things. It's just, it's like ridiculous. He knows way better. He wouldn't be doing this if this were any other president. Mock Schnell, 50 membos coming in courtesy of Mock Schnell. Thank you, Mock Schnell, for doing this. Juju Queen, welcome. Beep Bop, we got Jason on Blast. Antonio, welcome. Jess, Dan O'Connell, Elizabeth Carroll, Conservative Mama, All the Marbles, Poem, Mr. Meme is here. Brad Carthauser, we got Close Mom, Orothrim, Jack Smith, Mercenary Grip. What's up, Liliana Rivero? We got Irish Dublin, Fred Ashbaugh. We got Slick Soul, Stalker 06, US1 Tahoe, George Wolf, The Light Life, Don't Be Hatin' is here, Schlista, Jerome, James Reagan, What's Up, Nick S, JOK, Mandrews XL, The Void of Fun, Ditch Digger, KC, Keith C, Rusty Shackelford, James Crosswell, Hard Nose, David Quadrer, STS, I'll Be Damned is here, DK001, Gunner, Graminy NYC, So Very Carey, Veronica White, Kathleen Hanover, welcome. G. Gwen N. Somprasong Boone Perm, welcome. Rivian and Joe Bob Wienechi in the house. All gifted membos, courtesy of Mock Schnell. Thank you, Mock Schnell, for bringing in 50 new membos. Grab the members only stream from this morning. Join us for the members only after party. Consider becoming a membo to come have some fun with us. And welcome aboard. Thank you, Mock Schnell, for doing it. Hey, Quadcam says the founders designed the U.S. government with separate branches to prevent tyranny, but they did not view them as co-equal in power. Congress, which is the closest to the people, was central, the executive energetic yet constrained, and the judiciary the weakest and least defined. The modern idea of separate co-equal branches emerged later and began appearing explicitly in Supreme Court language, explicitly in the Warren Court era, and political discourse in the mid-20th centuries. Yeah, a lot of stuff happened in the mid-20th century. It's a very shifting time in our country. And I agree with this assessment completely. And, you know, the Supreme Court, I've often said recently, is that, you know, they've been treated historically in our government like the redheaded stepchild phrase that you hear a lot about. And the Supreme Court didn't even get the Supreme Court building until I think it was 1913. Okay, they used to work like they were like an afterthought. They gave them a building in New York and like, meh. And for the first years, the Supreme Court didn't do anything, actually. They had no cases. They had, their jurisdiction was basically nothing. So you look up like early Supreme Court cases, like the first couple terms of the presidencies, were pretty quiet. And the judges were also brutal, like the Federalist one, and they started prosecuting all the Republicans, all the Jeffersonians. It was brutal. It was like horrible. So then they got a little closet over in New York, and then they shoved him in the congressional building until the 1913s, right? And then they gave him a building. Okay, fine, get your own building. They finally built that one that they're in now, and then they sit in there like they're, you know, like they run the whole country. No, they don't. And judicial review has been a concept that feels like it's been perverted and expanded to be much broader than anything that it actually was. And I think there's good argument that Marshall shouldn't have even heard that case in the first place. So like a lot of the Supreme Court's argued power, I think, is questionable, debatable, and it's all just presumed to be valid. Judges should be looked at, and they should be looked at very skeptically because they're in a position where they are the judge, and they have this impugned infallibility to them. It's very annoying. Doan, F this hermetic application to constitutional law from Doan. Yeah, I mean, Boasberg is just making it up as he's going now. He's in search of a solution, and he doesn't have jurisdiction to do it. Hopefully the Court of Appeals settles it. Hey, Felix de la Cruz, how is Mayor Comrade Karen Bass, her new pseudo-Spanish last name, which is Bassholio, like Beavis and Butthead? Felix de la Cruz, Hegseth was very punk rock to the Democrats who think that they are punk rock during that hearing. Also says everyone knows all this BS going on with the lawfare and protests from BLM, Free Palestine, to this fight ICE is being paid for by billionaires, NGOs, by CIA and intel community, and congressional funding. I think that's right. I think a lot of it is old institutional money that the government was just funneling out to these institutions. And I'm sure they've got big fat coffers that they're unloading at the time because this is their final stand. Doan, Rob, you need to rock today's outro. Fire on the regular. It's a good tune. It's a good tune. Hey, what's up, the Rubos? They say, we truly love your outro song, but we really wish you had made it a little less catchy as we're now waking up in the morning singing and humming the tune. I know, so do I. I'm like, oh, no. Like, oh, gosh, you got to stop singing that. By the way, which AI platform did you use to create the song? So that was Suno. Yeah, so I used Suno. I wrote a good portion of it, and then I had ChatGPT kind of help me like clean it up. I'm like, okay, turn this in, I'm like, here's my thoughts. I want the chorus to sound like this. Put these words in there. And I said, okay, clean this up. And then I put that into Suno, because Suno also can do it. So, and then I put that into Suno, and then I did a bunch of revisions. I tried like Tom Petty. I tried a bunch of different stuff. And I caught it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. All right. So the Rubos, shout out to the Rubos. So Suno, yeah, Suno.com, I think is it. And I think I have a profile over there so you can look it up. Thank you, the Rubos, for the feedback. King of Biltong, baby. Get your Biltong courtesy of BiltongUSA.com and use code Robert to save some moolah when you do that. Lots of good meat over there. No additives, no garbage. Get your Biltong, courtesy of King of Biltong. Hey, Barb loves Alaska. So who will pay their attorney's fees? Oh, well, ACLU, I think, will just cover it. They don't have to, illegals aren't going to pay for anything. Are you kidding me? It's free ride for them, baby. It's America. Who's going to pay their attorney's fees? How many attorneys want to get exposed for supporting criminal illegals? This could get interesting. Well, a lot of them. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, this isn't their entire operation. Is their ending America using our own laws against us. They're communists operating within the systems to wreck the institutions and wreck the country's demographics and have us invaded. So, yeah, I don't think they'd care. They'd probably get hired by more law firms. But your point is well taken. A lot of lawyers hiding out there in the gutters, undermining American interests for money, just for money, and using the Constitution as a cover. Well, no, we're just protecting illegal immigration rights and all these things. No, you're not. You're getting paid for facilitating an invasion of our country. Hey, what's up? E.F. Huso. These horrid warmongers are worse than the mutant bomb worshippers beneath the Planet of the Apes. The mutant bomb. I don't know if I'm familiar with that one, but that sounds pretty bad. Thank you, E.F. Huso. We appreciate you on Rumble. Former LEO says, didn't the president of the Senate of Mexico just outline the process of confiscating the land which makes up the southern states of the U.S.? With that being said, maybe Trump's proclamation by POTUS can add Mexico to the list of alien enemies. Totally agree with this. I think that this is a great observation, is that even all these flags and everything, right? That's my point in saying that these are hostile things. These are not friendly protests where it's Americans saying, you know, we want our government to do better because they're representative of us. These are foreign invaders with foreign flags. It's not peaceful at all. There's an implied threat there. This appears to fit the criteria to deport all non-citizens currently within the borders. They're literally protesting in the streets with foreign flags. So we're under attack right now. They haven't started shooting anybody yet, but they're showing us they're there. This also might perfectly demonstrate what FAFO actually means. Matt Ostrander, great comment. Thank you, former. Matt Ostrander on YouTube says, why don't they do these riots in a state with stand your ground laws? Oh, FAFO might happen over there. Yeah, Matt, I think the state of California institutionally supports the whole illegal immigration. So it's like it's home field advantage there. They got more illegals. They've got friendly politicians. They've got numbers there. So that's where it's starting. We'll see if it spreads elsewhere. But we had a little bit in Arizona. I saw Chicago, New York, the big cities. Felix de la Cruz. That form has to be used for a very long time. Looks like amended it to comply with the AEA and extra processing to work with the INA laws. It is used in expedited removals and reinstatement removals under 1325 and 1326. Thank you for that. Felix de la Cruz. We got this one from Sandy. The WMM case, formerly the AARP case, has an en banc hearing on the 30th, coming up soon. This is the case where Judge Ho brutalized SCOTUS for what they did, sending it back down to him after allowing only 42 minutes to act for the lower court. I don't know if it will allow audio, but if so, will you be covering it? Yeah, I think we should. You know, I'm actually a little irritated because I wanted to re-listen to the oral arguments that took place today in New York, in the Court of Appeals there, I think it was, for Trump's removal proceeding for Manhattan. They published the audio and then they deleted the video, or they privated it right away. So, yeah, we might want to do that. Sandy, thanks for flagging that one for us. Yeah, that was a great dissent. The judge in Texas says, I can't believe the Supreme Court just did this to this judge. This judge did amazing. Fred Pedamonte. Hey, guy. J6, 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 J6. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. Have it smashed into your forehead with a stamp, says Fred. Felix de la Cruz. Media needs to stop beating the dead horse of J6. No one really assaulted Capitol Police in the same manner as any riot in 2020 and now 2025. Myopic media, dummies. Yeah. And it's, I think, pretty evident at this point that most people didn't care about January 6th, and the evidence of that is the election, because he won. So why you keep screeching about it? Heavy Johnny, you know that soldier you showed the picture of at the start of the episode is wearing an Army uniform, not a Marine, thank you. My guess is she is either no longer in the Army or she's in the National Guard. There's no way in the world she would be in front of the media in a uniform and not have a PAO. If she is still in the Army, she won't be for long. Thank you, Heavy Johnny, for the details on that. Yeah, I didn't know the details, and a lot of people are just posting videos out there, just like, hey, you know, I'm here recording this, this is what's happening. So who knows what the backstory is, but sure the Army's looking into it. Wojo, when you buy a bag of ice at the store, you should get half off on a can of Raid. But Yep, so stay cool and get rid of the infestation all in one. Thank you, Wojo. Neuro D. Hey, Rob, great show as always. Encryptus is covering the Grace Shara trial on his Rumble channel. Amazing. So check that out. What's up to Encryptus? Says Robert Barnes is helping out on the case. It's a civil case, wrongful death that the hospital blamed COVID on. If you could give his channel a shout out, doing it now, baby. Get some eyes on the case. Shout out to the Real Encryptus over on Rumble. So, hey, the Real Encryptus, thank you for checking us out, man. And with the raid, sounds like some great stuff happening over there. We love Robert Barnes, so it'd be fun to see some of his work in action. And he is acting on the Grace Shara trial. Shout out to Encryptus over on Rumble. That's what the channel looks like. That's the link. So go and check it out if you're interested. And thanks for swinging by. Rick D, the soldier in that video was discharged from the National Guard. Oh, Rick D, digging into it. She is impersonating a soldier in that video and committing federal crimes. I don't think you can do that, right? Like, did she just get kicked out? She's like mad about it. She's like putting on her uniform. She's like, I'm a representative of the Army. Yeah, not good. DOJ Rapid Response says this woman in the video was discharged from the Texas National Guard back in 2020. She does not reflect or speak for the U.S. Army. And maybe she'll be prosecuted. Joshua P., 21 months as a member. Thank you, Joshua, for being here for so long. Over 2 babies. Says, just give California to Mexico and build another wall. See, California is too nice. I'd rather just purge the illegals out. And you know what? And now that they are wanting to recontest the boundaries, maybe we just go and take Baja too. What do you think about that? Hey, Roger Needham should be charged with possession with intent to eliminate. Yeah, and they said attempted murder was coming, but I haven't seen it yet. So we'll keep our eye on that one. Roger Needham. Thank you, Roger, for the nice dono. Pinochet's helicopter tour, best helicopter ride you've ever been on, says, okay, so if I appeared in public wearing my BDUs and did what she did, retired the Army, I retired 2018, Hegseth or Down Chain has every right to recall me, if only to court-martial me and change my discharge from Pinochet's helicopter tours. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, she may already just be, she left. I don't know what happened, but she may already be at like max consequence. Who knows? Unless she's committing another federal crime. And that could be interesting. Felix de la Cruz. Mexico was given $15 million for all that territory. That's the equivalent of $380 million today. They don't tell you this part, though. Yeah, you want to give us that money back? How about we just come take it? Hey, Serrano Guardias. Mexico tried this in the Civil War, and they got their booties popped, too. Yeah, Serrano Guardias. Heavy Johnny says, bro, I'll re-enlist tomorrow to go to war with Mexico if they want it. I hope I get stationed in Cancun. It'll be like Apocalypse Now. I'll surf every day. Oh, man. It's a curious thing. It's like, wait a minute. So I'm having like these reflections on this. I'm like, wait a minute. Are they trying to engineer a kind of a conflicting border with us? We have clearly a conflicting border between Russia and Ukraine. Kind of this pseudo, neutral zone, or not neutral zone, but war zone with a dynamic border that is fluid based on gains and momentum over there. Are they trying to create an Israel-Gaza situation? Are they saying we're on this land first and you came and stole it and now you're trying to push us out of it? And so we're going to have a militarized border with Mexico now. In other words, we're going to have a recreation of Israel-Gaza at our border, a recreation of Russia-Ukraine here at the southern border. Is that where we're going? DJ Roach. So Mexico wants a terrorist state. Okay, says DJ Roach. Thanks for being here 13 months, DJ. Hey, E. Texley says, look up Rosie Castro. She is the mother of a Texas congressman called Joaquin Castro, know him, and his twin former HUD secretary called Julian Castro. She moved to California several years ago and continued her activism. She's been a main mover in La Raza, right, the race. And of course, they don't like white people like we saw in their plan of San Diego where they wanted all of them murdered. Deluxe Knight says, yeah, I heard someone look up Scheinbaum's last name heritage. Results came back with German Jewish descent. Interesting how she became president with that background. Yeah, no, I think she came from a Jewish family and is not Mexican, is like Bolivian or something, like from some other country. So she's not Mexican, she's not Catholic, and she won in an 80% Catholic country. Wild. Interesting how she became president. I know. I have no idea how that happened. First Amendment. Hey, Rob, any thoughts on the Dominion, MyPillow, Mike Lindell trial? I have not been following it, First Amendment, to be honest, so I can't comment on it intelligently. But, you know, Dominion has been a big bully for a long time, and they got a lot of money because a lot of people settle with them. And MyPillow, Mike Lindell, I believe, was trying to uncover the truth. And Dominion didn't like some of the things he was saying, so now they're battling it out. But other than sending some love to MyPillow Mike, don't have many thoughts on it because we just haven't been following it. Object Class Keeter says, he forgotten both California and Texas rebelled against Mexico and won independence. California for weeks, Texas for years. With the many government overthrows and civil wars, which Mexico we talking about. Not to mention the Mexican-American War. Yeah, apparently he just thinks it's all invalid. He doesn't like how it's settled out. He says LA is Los Angeles, so it's ours. They speak Spanish there, so it's ours. And is that true? The majority of people in LA are speaking Spanish? So if that's true, are the majority of the constituents illegals or non-citizen Americans? I don't know. Object Class Keeter from Will, thank you for that. Will Crump says, wouldn't that video of the Mexican politician only bolster Trump's case for invoking the Insurrection Act? This is an invasion if I ever saw one. Yeah, I think so too. I think he could file notices with that clip, with Scheinbaum's clip, and just say, look what they're saying. They're holding up flags. How is it? They're holding up maps showing that our land is theirs. And they're waving around Mexican flags in our states. How is that a peaceful protest? Thank you, Will. Dark Rogue, you know, just for the record, there is no such thing as a stupid question. Just stupid people who ask questions. Great advice. I think that's what my second grade teacher told me. Listen, Robbie, there's no stupid questions. You're just stupid. Okay, thank you, Miss Thompson. Okay, anyways, Will Crump, what's up? Hey, this is Fozzie Bear, voiced by Frank Oz. Fozzie! Did I say Fozzie? What did I say, Fizzy? I might have said Fozzie, I'm not sure. Rob, what's up? Thank you, Will. And thank you, Dark Rogue, for that one. Rob, hey, pack up your things on your mule, donkey. Burrow and put on your sombrero and afuera. Adios. Tony Haymunkett says Mexico was named by a Spanish guy. They were a conquered country way before us. Way before us. Thank you for that, Tony Haymunkett. It's great to see you, Tony Hay. We got this one from Winter. Says, You're right on Twitch. If you get enough people to watch you consecutively every time you stream, you will get the option to have subscribers. Yeah, that's right. That's right. So just keep doing what you're doing. You'll get the ability to get subs. Take it from a mod on Twitch. You got this. If anyone can do it, it's you. Winter, thank you for the enthusiasm and the encouragement. I know Twitch is big, man. A lot of people watch a lot of content over there. But we haven't been able, we've been streaming on Twitch for a long time, but you know, just for whatever reason, nobody watches over there. But if you do, then apparently I can turn on something and I can turn on features and do more things for you if you like to watch over there. Deluxe Knight, thank you for the heads up, Winter. Deluxe Knight, gift and membos. Where's this happening? Over on the Rumbles, Deluxe Knight. This is our farmer in the house who feeds all of us. Thank you, Deluxe Knight, for bringing in 20 new Rumble membos. Marley, SM Thompson. We got CF Rob. We got Weevo. Mart Rowe. What's up, Hobbs BLB? Neuro D. What's up, Ryan? Cornelius Buttknuckles over there. Rosebud. What's up, Bill Dozer? Gidge is there. Mike, Michigan. The State of Baker. Pinochet's Helicopter Tours. Guts and Blood. And Timothy Tinkleff. Much more. FD Man. Lindia. RJ Pie. Guts and Blood also here. Courtesy of Deluxe Knight. Thank you, Deluxe Knight. And I still don't know exactly what that means on Rumble. Like, do you get access to our locals? Because that's the membership component. I don't really know. But welcome, my friends, and I'll see if I can figure that out. Felix de la Cruz. Lurch's younger, bold brother is a 3-time loser. Let it go and answer that bell with, you rang? I think Cousin It needs help watching out his dingleberries. Ah, gosh. Tony Haymunkets. We have no problem if you just came across legally. No problem at all. Just come across legally, follow the rules. Not a big deal. Not a big deal. Hey, this old guy. Here you go, Rob. Here's the indictment of McIver. Ooh, we were waiting for that one. We were waiting for that one this morning. I couldn't find it this morning because she got an additional charge. Count 1. What's count 2? Was it going to be trespass? No. Wait a minute. Assault resisting. Count 2. Assault resisting and interfering. And count 1 is the same? All right, I have to read that closer. I feel like this morning we read it was different. Like the one was like a 1-year penalty. The other, it was 8, 8, and 1. So it kind of, at first inspection, looked like kind of the same charges. Anyways, thank you for flagging it for us, this old guy. We'll come back on that one. Hey, this one from Fozzie. Yeah, Fozzie and Fonzie. I might have said Fonzie. Is that what I said? Yeah, so that was wrong. Hey, what's up, Michael Manson? 27 months as a membo says, I keep losing your stream. It goes blank. Michael, I'm sorry that's happening. Hopefully that's an isolated incident. Sometimes logging out, logging back in can help it. But Michael, I appreciate you being a membo. I'm looking, do we have any frames drop? We had 30 frames drop out of like 100,000. So it's telling us we're at 0% frames dropped. So I think we're pretty good. But Michael, sorry having technical difficulties. Thanks for being a membo for so long. Carla D. She has been out of the military for 5 years. Her mama isn't illegal. I posted on your ex her bio. Carla D. Thank you for that. Yeah. So she's not even real. She's just cosplaying. She's just dressing up as soldier and pretending like she's legitimate. She's fake, just like the rest of them. Wes Downer. Hey, the pool is filling with water. Party starts at 7. Oh, perfect time for a little pool and barbecue sesh out there, Wes Downer. Have a great time. And wait 30 minutes after you eat your ribs. Pinochet's helicopter tour says, this is a globalist social agenda 2030. Trump's not playing along at all, which is why they're so freaked out about it. Yeah, ELZ says, how about an executive order renaming Los Angeles to Port Pacifica? I like it. It's a good name. Or maybe like America Pacifica, something like that. Yeah, something different, you know, and we can see what the Mexicans have to say about that. My friends, what a bunch of very nice donos. Thank you for sending those in and supporting our work. Welcome to new membos. Excited to have our new membos. We really try to deliver for our membos here. We got streams in the mornings, after parties, which we're going to head to now, and we have a lot of fun. Tony Hay says, or if Mexico wants to become our 51st state, I think Trump could work something out. Yeah, well, we're not on friendly terms with them anymore. 51st state. Since they think, yeah, we'll have to contemplate that. But we don't want them to have voting rights either. Once we reestablish the new treaty lines of the new Guadalupe Hidalgo, we'll see where it goes. Thank you, Tony Hay, for that one. Okay, my friends. So that is going to be it for us on the day. Before we wrap it up and head to our members only after party, we want to thank our amazing mods and meme smiths, including John, Donut, Carrie B, K Bean, of course, Neuro D, Janek, Dog Digger, modding the fort down for us, keeping things nice and orderly. Just Rhonda, Jigam, and Elliot, our dock master, always helping out as well. We're grateful for everybody who helps bring this stream together and helps to make it happen. We are going to pause right there for the evening. Of course, tomorrow is going to be Thursday. We're coming back, and we can't wait to see you then. Members only stream in the morning, and then back for the regular show. And in order to do that appropriately, we are going to need to see you right back here so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are nothing to hide. Drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through the scripted ruse. Together we are watching the watchers shine in the light. Watching the watchers defending what's right. Watching the watchers stay each night together